not toxic, girl. ¿Estás hablando conmigo? What? You're toxic. Toxic City.
Toxic City. The place where toxicity flows into your spirit like spilt spoiled milk and arsenic-laced honey. Few make it out alive with their soul intact. Most stay to endure hardship, struggle, and strife. They lose, sacrificing their purity of heart and peace of mind in favor of recycling old, outdated outlooks as they reteach toxic perceptions to newer generations. There are many tales of woe like this, but these toxicity tales are mine. It's time to bust up the toxic cycle, but first, accountability must be taken. It's time to remix this business and right the wrongs done in order to truly heal within. These are the lessons I learned during my experience within the Toxic City Chisme limits. I have forgiven, but I will never forget. I made my choice to walk away. I'm not sorry about it. Despite all I've experienced, I am as strong as God made me. My Father makes no mistakes. He knows exactly what has transpired. These things that were done to try to break my spirit actually fortified my faith. This generational toxic cycle ends with me. But first, I'm going to talk about it. I'm sharing with the world so that we learn as a group. Or as my culture would normally holler out, Oyes, ¿sabes qué? Checkmate. In these streets, there's hate in every family. It's there, secreted, dressed up. It's often disguised as wisdom. It's traditional. It's generational with an unfortunate repetitive cycle. Like the graduation of outdated outlooks and poisonous perceptions of a generation who maintain different struggles, we will never be able to stomach, let alone understand, experience, or even survive. It's biased, brazen, and unforgiving. It's a useful tactic of toxic, useless, yet acceptable excuses to allow their guilty views to infect the new crops of pure generational inspiration. No rest for wicked views, just as there is no justice for the pure thoughts in times of indifference. No one speaks up about it. There are no inquiries into who positioned the disdain-filled etchings on the glasses that shield their tired, uninspired, unambitious eyes from truly seeing the world as it is. They've settled, surrendering the fight for the righteous in the sea of I guess. Their boats of good enough has long overtaken their abilities for cosmic change and divine interjection. It's all learned. The behaviors we pass without consideration. There's no mindful thought of trait placement once we start the process of procreation. We all wish we were that smooth. We simply are not that skilled at overthinking, and not as control freaked as we claim to be. We probably should consider what legacy we are leaving behind right as the circle starts. But that's not what happens. It would be nice to think someone thought enough of the world to begin with. Maybe then the world we exist in wouldn't be in the state it's in. The failures of learned behavior. Young eyes witness that toxic behavior. Examples, demonstrations, precedents, patterns, blueprints, traditions. That's how the world learns. It's how babies learn everything. Everyone is taught how to do everything in life except breathing, blinking, and swallowing. If those are the truest statements in this point of existence, why would anyone question how people become toxic? The answer? People point out the obvious. Go ahead, try and leave. She won't live to see the next 10 seconds. My egg donor's husky, cigarette-dusted voice screamed toward my egg donor's donor. Learned behavior strikes again. He beat her for years. He stopped her from leaving that day, though. She suffered until the day she threw a 50-inch television right on top of him as he raised his hand to hit her. She left the house and never looked back. Thinking back on it now, I don't remember my egg donor's donor smiling too much throughout her life. She was always serious in expression, exceedingly loving and kind to me, but never someone who appeared to have experienced much joy in her life. She is a strange character, a proud hen if I ever saw one. I loved her so much, unconditionally, with my whole heart. That much I knew from a very young age. She wasn't like everyone else. It didn't matter what it was. She always had to make sure I knew certain things that were expected of me. Always make your bed. If you make your bed nice and neat, you won't want to get back into bed, and you'll have to find more things to fill out your day, Mama. She'd often whisper out of her hushed breath as she smoothed out the knitted duvet that covered the bed we slept in. Okay, Eggie, I'd nod, watching every detail as she showed me her understanding of the world. Listen, totally not her name, but we will adapt it as a shortened love moniker for egg donor's egg donor in this instance. Of course. When you're small and things happen, you don't realize what kind of impact certain instances have in shaping your life. You don't realize how bad something is until the moment you see your Eggie cry. I never realized she wasn't happy. Day in and day out, the woman I learned how to love from operated in routine. Waking up, she removed the rollers from her hair and made her rooster breakfast at 5 a.m. She'd do the dishes and call me to breakfast. We'd sit and I'd eat while she slowly sipped her coffee with a reflecting expression draped across her face. If you were to read her nonverbal body language, her body would tell you the tension she housed was built up from years of being beaten badly, misused and mistaken for small glimpses of loving touches. The second her rooster would leave to work, her body would release, and she would look over at me as if her expression said, "At last, we are free." We would continue our day with Eggie changing into her chosen house dress, combing through her pin curls she styled her hair in. Shrugging, she'd turn to leave in favor of hanging sheets to dry on the clothesline in the backyard. She'd effortlessly paint her lips with Avon's best reddest rouge, popping her lips as she patted them together. Spraying her signature scent from a burgundy bottle with gilded letters spelling Imari written on the front, she'd breathe in and stare at herself in the mirror a moment as if she were confronting her inner demons. I don't care what you do in life. Whatever you do, do it with pride. Not just for you, but for your babies, she'd say, smoothing out the freshly washed sheets with her hand. I don't have babies, Eggie, I'd giggle, shaking my head as I handed her another clothespin from my pocket. You will one day, and let me tell you something else, she growled, grabbing my chin forcefully. My alarmed eyes stared back up at her as I tilted my head curiously. Never muddy your blood. I won't allow it. And you will not like what your babies will look like with hair like that, she exclaimed, grabbing her basket as she stormed inside the house. At the time, I had no idea what she was talking about. The first time she mentioned this, I was a Punky Brewster watching 7-year-old who thought boys were defective, demented, and mean. I was busy trying to eat my gummy worms and watch Alf. I had bigger things to worry about other than babies. I barely even liked my baby doll. I would forget to feed her and often leave her in places like the bathroom shelf. Believe me, at 7 years old, I was not in a position to be anyone's mama. I was not in a mindset to consider what would happen if I actually had to be responsible for myself, let alone thinking of the state of future babies and the hair that they may have. Running my hands up and down the wet sheets as I ran back and forth between the lines of hung sheets, I wondered what happened to her to make her think such a thing. Why would I not want babies having hair like that? I'd whisper to myself, wondering if there was something she knew but chose not to share. Wait, hair like what? Aggie and I had no secrets. She told me all sorts of things. As far as I knew, she was the wisest person I knew growing up to that point. In my eyes, Aggie was a superhero that was right up there with Jem and She-Ra. She was the best tortilla-making Thundercat I ever knew. We were tight. She would never withhold anything from me. I shared all my favorite snacks with her. Walking back toward the house, I picked up a broken twig of a branch, flicking it side to side across my legs until I got closer to the house. Flicking it one last time, I threw the branch aside as I walked through the back door. Glancing around the kitchen, I breathed deeply as the aroma of garlic-flavored beans wafted through the air. No one cooks as good as Aggie. Don't care what you have to say. Argue with your mama. Aggie is the best. One thing you can always be sure of was that when you stayed at Aggie's house, you were going to be eating good. That particular day, we were going to be eating carne guisada, beans, rice, with homemade tortillas served with an ice-cold cup of sweet tea. God, how I miss those days. She had this way of making her tortillas. They were the best I've ever eaten. She'd often have to make dozens because there was a point in the night before dinner that she'd never be able to get at least one tortilla in the warming towel she'd set up to keep them fresh and keep her tortillas warm. As soon as that tortilla was taken off the fire, I'd be standing front and center with a spoonful of butter at the ready. Those truly were the best days of my life. Right off the kitchen, there is this stone wall that had a loose stone within the wall. It was my favorite hiding place for items like quarter sticky putty, my favorite Barbie shoes, or even candy I wanted to save and secret away from my evil little half-chick. From the day she was born, I knew she was a poisoned egg. Rotten from inside the uneven yolk out. I said what I said. Argue with your egg donor. It's the truth. Grabbing my sticky, silly putty from my secret hiding place, I smacked my fingers back and forth on the sticky, gelatin-feeling surface as I skipped the short distance from the kitchen through the hallway into her original bedroom. As I walked into her room, I found her sitting down on her bed, staring out of the window as if she were lost in thought. Aggie? I called, gently knocking on the open door. I didn't dare ask what she was thinking about. It wasn't my 7-year-old business. What I was more plagued with was why my babies couldn't have hair like that.
What? Yeah, you're still toxic, girl. Oyes, bueno, bye. Alright, make good choices. Peace.